Good day, I'm Eliza Trinidad from the last group and we will be reporting about collective bargaining and labor relations. Labor relations has been defined as the interaction between an employer represented by the management or administration and group of employees who are in bargaining units represented by the union. There is this book called Industrial Relations System that talks about the structure and development of the relationship among the integral members of labor relations and about resolving labor management problems. A successful industrial relations system is consists of four elements. First is an environmental context that is consists of technology, market pressure, and legal frameworks. Second is participants that is composed of employees and their union, management, and the government. Third is a web of rules, process by which labor and management interact and resolve disagreements. And last element is the ideology. For the industrial relations system to operate properly, the three participants must, some degree, have a common ideology. Labor relations is like a way where the union are making actions in order for the voices of the employees to be heard with regards to their terms and conditions of the works. The management is in charge to decide whether encourage or discourage the employee. It may discourage the union and may lead to misunderstanding of the opinion of other employees. The NLRC or National Labor Relations Commission is the agency tasked that promotes and maintains the peace by resolving labor and management fights. This concerns when workers felt like their voices are not being heard. Rules of procedures. The Labor Code of the Philippines has issued the NLRC the following set of rules for handling its cases. First rule is the title and construction. Only signifies the title of the governing rules. Rule number 2 is definition of terms. Defines the legal term used in the terms and phrases defined in Article 212 of the Labor Code shall be given the same meaning when used in NLRC cases. Rule number 3 is pleadings. Notices and appearance signifies that the parties involved will be given due notice for any impending proceedings. Rule number 4 is venue, assignment, and disposition cases. Advises that cases which labor arbiters will file the case in the regional arbitration branch that has jurisdiction over the workplace unless there are justifiable reasons why it should be filed elsewhere. Rule number 5, proceeding before labor arbiters signifies that the labor arbiters shall have exclusive jurisdictions to hear and decide all cases involving labor issues. Rule number 6 is appeals. It signifies where to submit an appeal after a case has been decided, and this area also advises both parties of the time frame given for an appeal to be submitted. Rule number 7 is proceeding before the commission. This rule suggests that the process flow of each case proceeding from the time a case is filed towards the decision or further into the motion of reconsideration. Rule number 8 is execution proceedings. Signifies that the rules to take place after decisions have been done and how the winning party could claim the damages incurred. Rule number 9 is certified cases. Signifies that the NLRC cases are certified by the law and any cases which appeared within the proceedings are considered final unless appeals are made. Rule number 10 is contempt. Signifies that committing any act of misbehavior in the presence of chairman or commissioner or labor arbiter will hereby be given an additional penalty. Rule number 11 is injunction. Illustrates the injunction that may happen within labor case. Rule number 12 is Commission Seal and Records and Powers and Duties of Commission Officials. Illustrates the notice to be given, how archives may be assessed, and duties of the officials and employees of NLRC. Rule number 13 is effectivity, indicates that these rules are in effect 15 days after August 31, 1990, which means that these rules were officially used starting September 15, 1990. The local union elects the officers such as president, vice president, and treasurers that is responsible for contract negotiation. Union membership and bargaining power. Union membership is the process of merging two parties into one, while bargaining power is the exchange of power to knowledge, resources, or others. Associate union membership. This is a must in every union. If you're the employer, you're obliged to pay for the benefits of your employees such as PhilHealth, SSS, Pag-ibig, and GSIS. Corporate campaign states that the employer is given pressure to exert money for them to promote their product. They usually use some well-known personality to promote their product. Structural economy. People are used to seeing men doing all work. Men are usually the member of the society that are working in different fields. But as our economy grows, we learn how to accept changes. Nowadays, even women who are capable for the work are being employed. It is not just about the gender or even the age. It is about the ability and capability. Increased employer resistance. Based on the survey, 50% of the employees wanted union-free. Jack Barbas insisted that most employees that do not have union wanted to be part of any union.
Good day everyone, I am Arabel Ann Y. Urbano and I will be discussing the third topic of Lesson 12 entitled Union and Management Interactions, Contract Negotiation. Negotiation is a strategic discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable. In the negotiation process, Robert Walton and Richard McCarthy suggested that labor management negotiations should be broken into four sub-processes, and these are distributive bargaining, integrative bargaining, attitudinal structuring, and intra-organizational bargaining. Distributive bargaining is also known as win-lose bargaining or fixed pie bargaining. It is a competitive negotiation process that is used to decide how to distribute fixed resources. In this bargaining or negotiation, one side gets more than the other. It is called fixed pie bargaining because the other side of the pie cannot be expanded. For example, a wage increase. That means the union gets a larger share of the pie and the management gets a smaller share. In short, one party gains at the expense of another party, or one party wins and the other party loses. Next is integrative bargaining. It is known as win-win bargaining or interest-based bargaining. In this negotiation, both parties will gain something. The parties will seek solutions beneficial to both sides. In this negotiation, both parties negotiate in such a way that the party takes the other party's wants, fears, and concerns into equation. This develops mutually beneficial agreement based on the interests of the disputants. If the management needs to reduce labor costs, it could reach an agreement with the union to avoid layoffs in return for the union agreeing to changes in work rules that might enhance productivity. The attitudinal structuring is a bargaining which involves shaping and reshaping of attitudes to positive and cooperative. Relationship and trust between labor and management negotiators is important. This is required to maintain smooth and harmonious industrial relations. It helps achieve good faith bargaining. If the relationship is poor, it might be difficult for the two sides to engage in integrative bargaining because each side hesitates to trust the other side to carry out its part of the deal. For example, the union may be reluctant to agree productivity-enhancing work rule changes to enhance job security if, in the past, it has made similar concessions but believes that management did not stick to its assurance of greater job security. The intra-organizational bargaining is the negotiation or bargaining within the organization. Labor management negotiations involve more than just two parties within management and to an even greater extent within the union. Different factions can have conflicting objectives. This takes place when internal resources must be allocated, responsibilities have to be assigned, or the division of functions need to be clarified. It serves as an important coordination and integration instrument for the management. For example, high seniority workers who are least likely to be laid off may be more willing to accept a contract that has layoffs. Less senior workers would likely feel very differently. Thus, negotiators and union leaders must simultaneously satisfy both management side and their own internal constituency. If they do not, they risk the union memberships rejecting the contract or they risk being voted out of office in the next election. Management, too, is unlikely to be one mind about how to approach negotiations. Some will focus on long-term employee relations, others will focus on cost control, and still others will focus on what effect the contract will have on stockholders. Management's preparation for negotiations. First is establishing interdepartmental contract objectives. The employer's industrial relations department needs to meet with the accounting, finance, production, marketing, and other departments and set contract goals that will permit each department to meet its responsibilities. As an example, finance may suggest a cost figure above which a contract settlement would seriously damage the company's financial health. The bargaining team needs to be constructed to take these various interests into action. Next is reviewing the old contract. This step focuses on identifying provisions of the contract that might cause difficulties by hindering the company's productivity or flexibility or by leading to significant disagreements between management and the union. Preparing and analyzing data. Information on labor costs and the productivity of competitors, as well as the data the union may emphasize, needs to be prepared and analyzed. The union data might include cost of living changes and agreements reached by other unions that could serve as a target. Data on employee demographics and seniority are relevant for establishing the costs of such benefits as pensions, health insurance, and paid vacations. Finally, a management needs to know how much it would be hurt by a strike, how long will its inventory allow it to keep meeting customer orders, to what extent are the other companies positioned to step in and offer replacement products, and how difficult would it be to find replacement workers if the company decided to continue operations during a strike. Next is anticipating union demands. Recalling grievances over the previous contract, have ongoing discussions with union leaders, and becoming aware of settlements at other companies or ways of anticipating like union demands and developing potential counter proposals. Recall that benefits add about 46 cents to every dollar's worth of wages. Also, wage or benefit increases that seem manageable in the first year of a contract can accumulate to less manageable levels over time. Establishing the cost of possible contract provisions. Wages have not only a direct influence on labor costs, but often an indirect effect on benefit costs. Preparing for a strike. If management intends to operate during a strike, it may need to line up replacement workers, increase its security, and figure out how to deal with incidents on the picket line and elsewhere. If management does not intend to operate during a strike, it needs to alert suppliers and customers and consider possible ways to avoid the loss of their business. This could even entail purchasing competitors' products in order to have something to sell to customers. Determining strategy and logistics. Decisions must be made about the amount of authority the negotiating team will have. What concessions can it make on its own, and which one requires it to check with top management? On which issues can it compromise and on which can it not? Decisions regarding meeting places and times must also be made. The management's willingness to take a strike. Can the company remain profitable over the long run if it agrees to the union's demands? The answer is more likely to be yes, to the extent that higher labor costs can be passed on to consumers without losing business. This in turn is most likely when the price increase is small because labor costs are a small fraction of total cost or there is a little price competition in the industry. Low price competition can result from regulated prices, from competition based on quality, or from the unions organizing all or most of the employers in the industry, which eliminates labor cost as a price factor. Unions share part of management concerned with long-term competitiveness because a decline in competitiveness can translate into a decline in employment levels. On the other hand, the majority of union members may prefer to have higher wages despite employment declines, particularly if a minority of the members suffer more employment loss and the majority keep their employment with higher wages. Can the company continue to operate in the short run despite a strike? Although hanging tough on its bargaining goals may pay off for management in the long run, the short run concern is the loss of revenues and profits from production being disrupted. The cost to strikers is a loss of wages and possibly a permanent loss of jobs. But under what conditions is management most able to take a strike? These are the factors to consider: product demand, product perishability, technology, availability of replacement workers, multiple production sites and staggered contracts, integrated facilities, and lack of substitutes for products. First factor is product demand. A management is less able to afford a strike when the demand for its product is strong because that is when more revenue and profits are lost. Next is product perishability. A strike by certain kinds of employees will result in permanent losses of revenue, thus increasing the cost of the strike to management. Next factor is technology. An organization that is capital intensive is less dependent on its employees and more likely to be able to use supervisors or others as replacements. Telephone companies are typically able to operate through strikes, even though installing new equipment or services and repair work may take significantly longer than usual. Third is availability of replacement workers. When jobs are scarce, replacement workers are more available and perhaps more willing to cross picket lines. Using replacement workers to operate during a strike raises the stakes considerably for strikers who may be permanently replaced. Most strikers are entitled to reinstatement until there are job openings for which they qualify. If replacements were hired, such openings may not occur for some time. In some cases, companies can use managers to replace striking workers. Next is multiple production sites and staggered contracts. Multiple sites and staggered contracts permit employees to shift production from the struck facility to facilities that, even if unionized, have contracts that expire at different times. Next, integrated facilities. When one facility produces something that other facilities need for their product, the employer is less able to take a strike because the disruption to production goes beyond that single facility. The just-in-time production system, which provides very little stockpiling of parts, further weakens management's ability to take a strike. Last factor is the lack of substitutes for product. A strike is more costly to the employer if customers have a readily available alternative source from which to purchase the goods or services the company provides.
Good day everyone, I am Hans Christian and I will be presenting topic 4, Union Management Interactions, Contract Administration. First thing is grievance procedure. Grievance procedure is the formal step that must be followed to settle disputes between labor and management. First step of the procedure, the grievance is reported to one's immediate supervisor who is obligated to investigate the matter and try to resolve the problem. The problem can be reported orally but usually written. Second is the writing is then submitted to superintendent or line managers. Supervisor should then work with the union stewards to resolve the problem, and industrial relations staff can be consulted at this stage. Third, the problem is then appealed to top line manager and industrial relations staff representative to resolve the problem. Final step is the union decide on whether to appeal unresolved grievance to arbitration according to procedures specified in its constitution and or bylaws. The decision is then put into writing. Arbitration, a procedure for resolving collective bargaining impasses by which an arbitrator chooses a solution to the dispute. In most common case discharge or discipline, the following due process questions are important. 1. Did the employee know what the rule or expectation was and what the consequences of not adhering to it were? 2. Was the rule applied in a consistent and predictable way? In other words, are all employees treated the same? 3. Are facts collected in a fair and systematic manner? An important element of this principle is detailed record keeping. Both employees' actions such as tardiness and management response or verbal and written warnings should be carefully documented. 4. Does the employee have the right to question the fact and present a defense? An example in a union setting is hearing with the shop steward present. 5. Does the employee have the right to appeal a decision? An example is recourse to an impartial third party such as an arbitrator. 6. Is there a progressive discipline? Except perhaps for several cases, an arbitrator will typically look for evidence that an employee was alerted as early as possible that the behavior of an inappropriate and the employee was given a chance to change prior to some form of severe discipline such as discharge. 7. Are there unique mitigation circumstances? Although discipline must be considered, individuals differ in terms of their prior service, performance, and discipline record. All of these factors may need to be considered. Cooperative labor management strategies. Jack Barbash described the nature of the traditional relationship between labor and management during both the negotiation and administration phases. As I quote, "Bargaining is a love-hate, cooperation-conflict relationship. The parties have a common interest in maximizing the total revenue which finances their respective returns. but they take an adversarial posture in debating how the revenue shall be divided as between wages and profit. It is the adversarial posture which was historically set the tone of the relationship. End of quote. Topic 5. Labor relation outcomes. The effectiveness of labor relation can be evaluated from management, labor, and societal perspective. Management seeks to control costs and enhance productivity and quality. Labor unions seeks to raise wages and benefits and exercise control over how employees spend their time at work, such as through workflows. Each of three parties typically seeks to avoid conflicts, like strikes, that impose significant costs on everyone. A strike means temporarily but indefinitely suspension of work on part of employee and workers as form of protest to have their demands met. Productivity. Productivity is commonly defined as a ratio between the output volume and the volume of inputs. In other words, it measures how efficiently production inputs such as labor and capital are being used in an economy to produce a given level of output. There has been much debate regarding the effects of union on productivity. Unions are believed to decrease productivity in at least three ways. First, the union pay advantage causes employers to use less labor and more capital per workers than they would otherwise, which reduce efficiency across society. Second, union contract provision may limit permissible workloads, restrict the tasks that particular workers are allowed to perform, and requires employers to use more employees for certain jobs than they otherwise would. And third, strike, slowdown, and working to rule are slowing down production by following every workplace rule to an extreme result in lost production. Profit and stock performance. Even if unions do raise productivity, a company's profit and stock performance may still suffer if unions raise costs such as wages or decrease investment by a greater amount. Evidence shows that unions have a large negative effects on profits and that unions' coverage tends to decrease more quickly in firms experiencing low shareholders' returns, suggesting that some firms become more competitive partly by reducing union strength. Similarly, one study finds that each dollar of unexpected increase in collective bargain labor costs result in dollar reduction in shareholders' wealth. That's all for my topic. Thank you and have a good day.
Lesson 13. Managing HRM Globally. The first topic of Lesson 13 is entitled Factors Affecting HRM in Global Markets. Culture consists of beliefs about the world and how it works, and the ideals that are worth striving for. First dimension is individualism-collectivism. It describes the strength of the relation between an individual and other individual in the society. That is the degree to which people act as individuals rather than members of a group. Next is power distance. It describes how a culture deals with hierarchical power relationship, particularly the unequal distribution of power. It describes the degree of inequality among people that is considered to be normal. Uncertain avoidance describes how cultures seek to deal with an unpredictable future. It is defined as the degree to which people in a culture prefer structured over unstructured situation. Masculinity-femininity division. It describes the division of roles between the sexes within a society.
Long-term, short-term orientation describes how a cultural balance immediate benefits with future rewards. As Hofstede found, culture also has a profound impact on countries' economic health by promoting certain values that either aid or inhibit economic growth. Education human capital. Human capital refers to the productive capabilities of individuals, that is the knowledge, skills, and experience that have economic value.
Political legal system. It is the regulation imposed by the country's legal system that can strongly affect the HRM. Economic system. The economic system provides many of the incentives or disincentives for developing the value of the labor force. In developed countries with great wealth, labor costs are relatively high. This impacts compensations and staffing practices.
Good day everyone, my name is Kija Lois B. Ramos and I'm going to discuss you the topic 3 of lesson 13, which is managing employees in a global context. Different types of international employees. First is the parent country, the country in which a company's corporate headquarters is located. Second is the host country. It refers to the country in which the parent country organization seeks to locate or has already located a facility. Next is the third country. It refers to a country other than a host or parent country. Fourth is the expatriate. It refers to an employee sent by his or her company in one country to manage operations in a different country. Fifth is the parent country nationals, or known as PCNs. It refers to the employees who were born and live in a parent country. Sixth is the host country nationals, or known as HCNs. It refers to the employees who were born and raised in the host, not the parent country. And last is the third country nationals, or TCNs. It refers to the employees born in a country other than the parent or host country. Levels of global participation. We often hear companies referred to as multinational or international. However, it is important to understand the different levels of participation in international markets. This is especially important because as a company becomes more involved in international trade, different types of HRM problems arise. In this section, we examine Nancy Adler's categorization of the various levels of international participation from which a company may choose. Domestic businesses. Most companies begin by operating within a domestic marketplace. For example, an entrepreneur may have an idea for a product that meets a need in the U.S. marketplace. This individual then obtains capital to build a facility that produces the product or service in a quantity that meets the needs of a small market niche. This requires recruiting, hiring, training, and compensating a number of individuals who will be involved in the production process, and these individuals are usually drawn from the local labor market. The focus of the selection and training programs is often on the employee's technical competence to perform job-related duties and to some extent on interpersonal skills. In addition, because the company is usually involved in only one labor market, determining the market rate of pay for various jobs is relatively easy. International businesses. As more competitors enter the domestic market, companies face the possibility of losing market share. Thus, they often seek other markets for their products. This usually requires entering international markets, initially by exporting products, but ultimately by building production facilities in other countries. The decision to participate in international competition raises a host of human resource issues. All the problems regarding locating facilities are magnified. One must consider whether a particular location provides an environment where human resources can be successfully acquired and managed. Multinational businesses. Whereas international companies build one or a few facilities in another country. They become multinational when they build facilities in a number of different countries, attempting to capitalize on lower production and distribution costs in different locations. The lower production costs are gained by shifting production from higher cost locations to lower cost locations. The HRM problems multinational companies face are similar to those international companies face, only magnified. Instead of having to consider only one or two countries, cultural, human capital, legal, and economic systems, the multinational company must address these differences for a large number of countries. This accentuates the need to select managers capable of functioning in a variety of settings, give them necessary training, and provide flexible compensation systems that take into account the different market pay rates, tax systems, and costs of living. Global businesses. Many researchers now propose a fourth level of integration: global organizations. Global organizations compete on state-of-the-art, top-quality products and services, and do so with the lowest cost possible, whereas multinational companies attempt to develop identical products distributed worldwide. Global companies increasingly emphasize flexibility and mass customization of products to meet the needs of particular clients. Multinational companies are usually driven to locate facilities in a country as a means of reaching that country's market or lowering production costs. And the company must deal with the differences across the countries. Global firms, on the other hand, choose to locate a facility based on the ability to effectively, efficiently, and flexibly produce a product or service and attempt to create synergy through the cultural differences. Global companies have multiple headquarters spread across the globe, resulting in less hierarchically structured organizations that emphasize decentralized decision-making. This results in the need for human resource systems that recruit, develop, retain, and use managers and executives who are competent transnationally. Transnational HRM system is characterized by three attributes. First is the transnational scope. It refers to a company's ability to make HRM decisions from an international perspective. Second is the transnational representation. Reflects the multinational composition of a company's managers. And last is the transnational process. It refers to the extent to which a company's planning and decision-making processes include representatives and ideas from a variety of cultures. Managing expatriates in global markets. We have outlined the major macro-level factors that influence HRM in global markets. These factors can affect a company's decision whether to build facilities in a given country. In addition, if a company does develop such facilities, these factors strongly affect the HRM practices used. However, one important issue that has been recognized over the past few years is the set of problems inherent in selecting, training, compensating, and reintegrating expatriate managers. Selection of expatriate managers. Expatriate managers must have technical competence in the area of operations. Otherwise, they will be unable to earn the respect of subordinates. However, technical competence has been almost the sole variable used in deciding who to send on overseas assignments, despite the fact that multiple skills are necessary for successful performance in these assignments. A successful expatriate manager must be sensitive to the country's cultural norms, flexible enough to adapt to those norms, and strong enough to make it through the inevitable culture shock. In addition, the manager's family must be similarly capable of adapting to the new culture. These adaptive skills have been categorized into 3 dimensions. First is the self dimension. It refers to the skills that enable a manager to maintain a positive self-image and psychological well-being. Second is the relationship dimension. It refers to the skills required to foster relationships with the host country nationals. And last, the perception dimension. It refers to those skills that enable a manager to accurately perceive and evaluate the host environment. One study of international assignees found that they considered the following 5 factors to be important in descending order of importance: family situation, flexibility and adaptability, job knowledge and motivation, relational skills, and extracultural openness. Reacculturation of expatriates. A final issue of importance to managing expatriates is dealing with the reacculturation process when the managers re-enter their home country. Re-entry is no simple feat. Culture shock takes place in reverse. The individual has changed, the company has changed, and the culture has changed while the expatriate was overseas. According to one source, 60% to 70% of expatriates did not know what their position would be upon their return, and 46% ended up with the jobs that gave them reduced autonomy and authority. 20% of workers want to leave the company when they return from an overseas assignment. And this presents potentially serious morale and productivity problems. Companies are increasingly making efforts to help expatriates through reacculturation. 2 characteristics help in this transition process: communication and validation. Communication refers to the extent to which the expatriate receives information and recognize changes while abroad. The closer the contact with the home organization while abroad, the more proactive, effective, and satisfied the expatriate will be upon re-entry. Validation refers to the amount of recognition received by the expatriate upon return home.